Amen.
Good morning, everyone. So the prayer today will be offered by the wonderful delegate from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
First of all, thank you to the delegate from Montgomery County for loaning me her glasses so I could read this. We thank you, God, for those of us who are here with us today and those of us who are in nearby cities and distant cities. We remember those who we love who are not with us anymore. We are grateful for the bonds of loyalty and affection which sustain us and which keep us close to one another, no matter how far apart we actually may be. We thank you for implanting within us the capacity to love and to care. Help us to be modest in our demands of one another, but generous in our giving to each other. May we never measure how much love and encouragement we offer, and may we never count the times we forgive each other. Rather, may we always be grateful that we have one another and that we are able to express our love in acts of kindness. Keep us gentle in our speech. When we offer words of criticism, may they be chosen with care and spoken softly. And may we waste no opportunity to speak words of sympathy, of appreciation, and of praise to one another. Bless our families with health and happiness, contentment and joy. And above all, grant us the strength to continually build a place, a house of delegates in which your spirit will always abide. Amen.
Karen Cole.
Madam Speaker.
Oh, my phone may go off.
Madam Speaker,
Yes?
my button's not working.
Mexico. Thank you. We'll give people a second to settle down. All right. Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk would take the call. Thank you for your patience, everyone. There being 128 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, February the 18th, 2026.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the journal.
So order petitions, memorials, and other papers. House resolutions. We have quite a few today. So we're going to start with the delegate from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
On behalf of the District 15 team, I want to welcome the Winston Churchill High School varsity golf team who recently won the 2025 Golf Classic 3A and 4A Team State Championship. Joining us to receive the citations today are team captain Ethan Goldsboro and team captain Zoe Cusack, who also won the 2025 3A, 4A Girls State Championship for her second year in a row and the lowest score overall. And for those folks like me that don't know what that means, the lower the score, the better. We would also like to congratulate Ethan on signing with Morehouse College for their golf team. And Zoe for signing for the University of Virginia's golf team as well. We are all very proud of the entire golf team for their performance in the past season and wish them more great victories in the years ahead. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating the team. The rest of the team is up on the balcony. Can you stand up? There we go. Stand up for us. Woo!
You can stand up. Congratulations to all.
Excellent work.
Will the clerk please read the entire resolution?
Be it hereby known to all that the House of Delegates of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to the Winston Churchill varsity golf team in recognition of winning the state 3A, 4A championship. The entire membership extends best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on this 25th day of February 2026.
The next resolution, I'm recognizing the delegate from Wycomico and Worcester counties.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Please join me in welcoming NASA Goddard Space Flight Center's Wallops Flight Facility, who have come to Annapolis for Maryland Aerospace Day. Representing Wallops Flight Facility today is David Pierce, Director of Wallops, and Cynthia Simmons, Center Director of Goddard Space Flight Center. And in the gallery is Ray Rubalata, Goddard's Associate Center Director, and Felina Tooks, the Government Affairs Manager. If they could stand there in the rear gallery. I want to take a moment to recognize Wallops' devoted partnership with the state of Maryland and all their efforts to advance aerospace economic development, education, and professional career opportunities on the Eastern Shore. Wallops Flight Facility is partnered with Warwick Community College, Salisbury University, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore through Space Act agreements to create aerospace educational programs, internship opportunities, and workforce development opportunities. And here's the real exciting part. Wallops' efforts have also led to opening of a new 55,000 square foot state-of-the-art hypersonic system manufacturing facility in Princess Anne, Maryland. Kratos Defense and Security Solutions chose this location for its proximity to Wallops to optimize logistics and operational efficiencies. This is exactly the type of economic development and job creation that we are striving for on the Eastern Shore. Many thanks to Wallops and your team.
Will the clerk please read the full resolution?
Be it hereby known to all that the House of Delegates of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center's Wallop Flight Facility in recognition of your commitment to promoting and supporting aerospace economic development, education, and professional career opportunities on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. The entire membership extends best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on this 25th day of February 2026.
We have one more House resolution. Congratulations to everyone. I'm going to be recognizing 3 delegates, but I'm going to start with a delegate from Howard.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
My pleasure.
So, Madam Speaker, if the waves of pink and green flowing in and around the State House have not been a hint, this is a very special day in Annapolis, because this is Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated Day and Night in the Capitol. Since the founding on January 15th, 1908, on the campus of Howard University by Ethel Hedgeman and 8 other visionary Negro undergraduate women, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated have, through merit and culture, continued to fulfill its mission of being supreme in service to all mankind. With over 390,000 initiated members in 1,115 chapters in 15 nations. We continue to do the work and are here today to advocate for our constituents. I would like to note representing us today are Ingrid Watson, the National Atlantic Regional State Coordinator for Maryland. Ms. Tanya Ringgold, National Atlantic Regional Director-elect. And a familiar face to this body, former member and present Prince George's County Councilwoman Wanika Fisher. And Madam Speaker,
Yes.
with your permission, I would like to hand over the introduction of our members to a member of the sorority and the former Speaker Pro Tem from the Eastern Shore.
Granted. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Good morning. Thank you so much for this day. As you see, a sea of pink and green is here and up in the gallery. And as you see, it takes a collective effort of Alpha Kappa Alpha women. So I rise today to recognize our remarkable women who serve in this body, in this chamber. We do not do it for performative measures, but we do it because it's in our heart and it's in our spirit and in our soul. And we have been consistent and been engaged through the halls of this chamber and through the entire state of Maryland. Permission to use the delegates' names.
Permission granted.
Thank you. I would like to recognize my sorors, and you please stand. Delegate Sandy Bartlett. Delegate Terry Hill. Delegate Pamela Queen. Delegate Edith Patterson. Delegate Kim Taylor. Delegate Karen Tolles. Delegate Jennifer White Holland. Delegate Janelle Wilkins. And of course, myself. I just again want to say thank you for this opportunity, and everyone please enjoy speaking with our pink and green women today.
Thank you. Recognizing the delegate from Howard again.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would it be all right if the sorors here in the chamber approached the podium to join our sorors for the resolution?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Would the clerk please read the full resolution?
Be it hereby known to all that the House of Delegates of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in recognition of celebrating 118 years of honoring the North Atlantic region with steadfast advocacy and impactful service. The entire membership extends best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on this 25th day of February 2026.
Congratulations to everyone. We're now going to do introductions of House bills.
Madam Speaker,
Yes, recognizing the Vice Chair of the Appropriations Committee.
I'm sorry, I wanted to do an announcement of a group that's up in the gallery, if that's okay, since we're likely having a long morning here.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, and I apologize. I wanted to acknowledge the Carabelle Pizzigatti Fellows who are here from the University of Maryland. Where are they up here in the gallery? I have some on one side of them. I'm seeing a few hands. Oh, they're pointing this way. They're coming in. They're dedicated students from the University of Maryland, and their powerful presence in Annapolis, showing up, engaging policymakers, and elevating critical conversations. They're demonstrating what principled leadership and civic commitment look like in action. I want to thank them for their advocacy, scholarship, and leadership. Their work at Annapolis reminds us when we put kids first, we build stronger families, stronger communities, and a stronger Maryland. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. And welcome to all of them. Let's give them a big hand. Introduction of House bills. The clerk will read the bills and their committee assignments.
House Bill 1614, Delegate Ahrens, House Rules. House Bill 1615, Delegate Bondari, House Rules. House Bill 1616, Delegate Rogers, House Rules. House Bill 1617, Delegate Alston, House Rules. By order of Sylvia Seeger, Chief Clerk.
The clerk will read the bond initiatives and their committee assignments.
Introductory House Bond Initiatives number 51, February 26, 2026, referred to appropriations. Introductory House Bond Initiatives number 52, February 25, 2026, referred to appropriations.
Thank you. Message from the Senate, consent calendar number 7, Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the first bill and committee assignment.
Senate Bill 77, Chair, Senate Budget and Taxation Committee, referred to Government, Labor, and Elections.
Recognizing the majority leader.
So much be considered the reading of Senate Bill 77, be considered the reading for all the bills on the calendar.
Hearing no objection, the bills are read the first time and referred to the appropriate committees. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 2. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 118, Maryland Money Transmission Act, definition of money transmitter, alteration, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. Will the clerk please read the next bill?
House Bill 135, Economic Development Tax Increment Financing, Non-Contiguous Areas, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. Please read the next bill.
House Bill 485, State Board of Professional Landscape Architects, revisions, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The next bill, please.
House Bill 487, Maryland Technology Development Corporation, investments, alterations, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 3. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 38, Financial Institutions, Licensing of Affiliated Insurance Producer, Mortgage Loan Originators, alteration, favorable amendments, amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Be so much be considered a reading of the amendments.
So order.
The amendments are all technical and clarifying references. Please move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. Will the clerk please read the next bill?
House Bill 85, Corporations and Associations, Cooperative Limited Equity Housing Corporations Establishment. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Moves to must be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes a provision that prohibited local jurisdictions from imposing restrictions on cooperatives. Instead, permits local laws, building codes, and zoning restrictions on cooperatives that also apply to property of similar character. Changes the effective date up to October 1st, 2026, and makes clarifying changes. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Will the clerk please read the next bill?
House Bill 431, Real Property Recordation and Printing of Subdivision Plats Alterations. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the full leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Moves to must be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 removes the fees increased for the recordation of subdivision plats. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signifying by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 10. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1341, Public Schools, School Security Personnel, Immigration, Investment, and Enforcement. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
Move so
welcome.
much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 adds in definitions for county superintendent, judicial officer, and sensitive location. Requires certain public school personnel to notify a county superintendent or county intendant's designee if the individual receives notice of an immigration enforcement at a school, and requires a courthouse to deny access to certain portions of the courthouse unless certain conditions are satisfied. Amendment number 3 is technical. Amendment number 4 expands the definition of sensitive location related to a public school to include a designated school bus stop or certain school vehicle. Adds to the definition of sensitive location certain locations that distribute food to individuals in need. Requires courthouses to implement policies consistent with guidance by the Attorney General. Requires the Attorney General to update certain guidance related to sensitive locations and immigration enforcement, and requires courthouses, public schools, public libraries, and units of the executive branch of the state and local government to implement and update certain policies. And amendment number 5 makes the bill an emergency bill. Please move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing the delegate from Carroll County. Good
Thank
morning.
you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
May I ask a question of the floor leader?
Floor leader,
Sure.
let's listen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
One of my questions is, reading
Will you be
the-
so kind and put the...
Yes,
Yes,
sorry.
thank you.
Reading the reprint of the bill, I had a question. So in reference to the school portion, is this addressing a problem that is happening now in Maryland?
Yes, actually it is. One of the impetus for this bill and the reason for the amendments is because we have received requests from various school systems that they would like additional guidance. As you know, we passed similar legislation last year with regards to this, but we've heard from several school systems that they would like for more clarity on what they can and cannot do in these situations, and that was the impetus for this bill.
Okay, so we currently have people going into the schools and removing children due to illegal immigration enforcement and concerns. That's happening today?
Well, what we have heard is that if something like that were to happen, the school systems want additional guidance as to what to do if something like that were to occur.
Okay, but this hasn't happened, so this is an if, is correct? This isn't happening now. It's an if this happens.
I'll give her indulgence. Madam Speaker?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to yield to the
One
committee chair.
second.
Thank you.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Unfortunately, what has happened is outside of the school, children and parents have been abducted and detained by ICE. In fact, there was a situation at Eastern in Silver Spring just yesterday.
All right, but the bill addresses also inside of school, so that was my question. So that has not happened or is not currently happening as far as we know
And in fact,
in schools.
In fact, I believe the floor leader explained that while we may not have an exact instance just yet, the school needs to know what to do if they're served or if they're somehow approached. And so that's what this bill does. It
I
helps them
appreciate
give
the
that
answer.
guidance.
I appreciate that
Mhm.
answer.
And also, I'm sorry, and also it addresses the community, because the community is not going to school or going into court to serve as a jury or witnesses. So it addresses both issues. They also need to know what will happen if they go to school and if their teacher, or someone is approached with some form of warrant. They need to know that in advance.
All right, I appreciate the
Yeah, because so you need to know the
clarification,
law to be able to obey the law. Yeah.
Right, but we're talking about an if scenario. Madam Speaker, may I ask, I would like to request a special order for this bill for possible amendment tomorrow.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Yes, that's okay. If you can provide the committee with any of your amendments ahead of time, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much.
So the question before the House is to special order House Bill 1341. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1341 has been special order until the appropriate time tomorrow. If you have any questions or you have amendments regarding this bill, please contact the committee and the floor leader and the chair, please. Thank you. Special order calendar number 10, House Bills 53. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 53, Criminal Law, Non-Domesticated Animal Prohibitions, Alterations. Favorable report adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the motion, the delegate from Cecil County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to start off by asking a question.
Let's listen, please. Thank you.
Of the floor leader and then potentially offer the amendment. If the floor leader could rise for a question.
Floor leader.
Most certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader. And I've gone back and forth on this. I just wanted to add some clarity for the legislative record. So I want to pose a scenario to you about the grandfathering provision that's written in the bill. And just get the legislative intent. So if a current owner of a zebra, specific to zebra, complies with the bill if it's passed and it registers with the animal control, and that zebra, as we know, they don't live forever, passes away after 12/1/26, as specified in the bill, would that owner of a zebra be able to replace the zebra if the death occurred after 12/1/26?
As this legislation is drafted, that answer would be no.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the amendment. Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
Go ahead.
Amendment number 543221-1.
1 second. We don't seem to have the amendment. 1 second, please.
I could run a copy up there.
And Madam Speaker, we were granted a copy of the amendment prior to.
Yeah, I believe the floor leader has the amendment.
But the clerk does not have it. 1 second. Give us 1 minute, please.
Yep, it's on. I've got my fastest colleague running it up now.
I love that everyone is helping each other. Great.
Yes, thank you. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Madam. Thank you
Give
for that
us
indulgence.
a second, please. 1 minute, please. Just take a second. 1 minute. It's okay.
Yep.
1 minute, please. It has to be scanned. Give us a second. Thank you so much for being flexible.
Okay. Yep.
It's okay. Yeah, the scan is not working. It just doesn't want you to put in that amendment. There it goes. Oh, there you have it. That was a fast prayer. Why don't you go ahead, sir, and thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So
You're
I have an
welcome.
amendment at the desk. The amendment number is 543221-1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Okay, so I'll describe the amendment and then kind of give some background of why this amendment is necessary. So all the amendment does is it allows for zebras, if they are being used for the purposes of agriculture, to be exempt from this bill. Now, there's already some exemptions in the bill that talk about animal shelters, zoos, and the like. This would just extend that exemption purely for zebras to agricultural use. I want to start off by saying I think this is a black and white issue.
That's a good one.
In my district, there currently exists a farmer, and that farmer uses zebras and has so for over a decade now to do weed control. I would point you, and you all know how much I love science. I would point you to an article that was published by the National Science Foundation in 2011. The title of that article is Interplay of Competition and Facilitation in Grazing Succession by Migrant Serengeti Herbivores. Yep, I'm going to read that again. Interplay of Competition and Facilitation in Grazing Succession by Migrant Serengeti Herbivores. I'm going to translate that into plain English. We're all familiar with the magazine called Science. They wrote an article on these findings, and the name of that article, in layman's speak, is Want Fatter Cows? Bring a Zebra. What they did is they observed over the course of 8 years zebras interacting with cows, and what they found is that zebras, much like a goat, only larger and more voracious, consumed thorny and weedy plants that cows do not like and will not eat and cannot digest. We all know that there's a different digestion process for cows versus horses, all right? Now, we've had lots of discussions about uses of pesticide and best practices for farming. The farmer that I'm making reference to was one of my constituents, is on the cutting edge of technology when it comes to using animals in lieu of pesticides. Now, why is this bill important? We're all familiar with the state seal, right? It's got a farmer, it's got a fisherman on there. What you may not know is that in the background of that farmer, there is actually a zebra. Hard to see because it is their nature to blend in. That's just what they do, right? But I guess what I'm asking here is that because this may be a nascent procedure, because this maybe isn't universally utilized, that we should allow this farmer who's currently practicing, who we already heard from the floor leader, will not be able to continue practicing to do so after 12/1/26. And with that, I'd like to move the amendment.
Floor leader, I have to say that I'm going to start keeping a bingo card up here. And this is one that goes on my bingo card. Go ahead.
Black and white. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to ask the body to resist this amendment. And let me share with you. So the challenge is, as many of you may know, zebras are not domesticated animals. They're very difficult to fence and to control. In Prince George's County, we had several weeks, maybe months, of zebras running around Prince George's County wreaking havoc. So, The challenge with this is we currently do not have a full set of regulations to address zebras. And while this is, I understand, a unique use, it is just that. For a farmer in Cecil County, are we going to legislate for a farmer in Cecil County? And so I would suggest to you that at this point, we need to reject the amendment. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I did want to speak to that if we're going to go on anecdotes here. I do want to speak to the incident that occurred in Prince George's County and why it's relevant and why I've spent the last 24 hours educating myself on zebras. The incident in Prince George's County occurred on a parcel where the landowner had a double fence, which is more than adequate, and an act of God occurred where a large tree fell on the fence and created an opening that allowed for the zebras to escape. The situation that I just described was with a good actor. It could have occurred at a zoo. It could have occurred at a animal shelter. All of the scenarios that are present in the bill could have occurred the same way. So this, I would push back and say this is actually taking away an existing right of a farmer, right? Currently being used, no issues. I would also add that although the incident in Prince George's added a lot of mayhem to animal control, no one was injured. Unfortunately, the zebras, one was euthanized and the other one died. However, no damage to property, no damage to any individuals. It was unforeseen, it was unfortunate, but again, it was caused by an act of God. That's why I'm fighting like a lion for this amendment, all right? And I'd like to continue to push it. I think there's some other folks that want to weigh in. Thank you.
Recognizing the delegate from the Eastern Shore. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So we have zebras in Caroline County too, so you know. So this isn't isolated to just Cecil County. And I guess the argument to resist this amendment is that we're trying to protect a single farm in Cecil County. I'll flip that to say that the reason why we have the bill is because of a single incident in Prince George's County, right? Can I say that again? The argument against this amendment is that we want to protect one single farmer in Cecil County, which that's not true. There's one in Caroline too. But I want to flip that is the reason for the bill is because of a single incident in Prince George's County. So for that reason, even though the committee doesn't want you to take the amendment, I'm asking you all to vote green on this amendment. This is a good amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader first.
Okay. Scott.
No? Oh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So one of the challenges with the amendment, not only is it, we believe, inappropriate to have zebras because there are all types of options in terms of animals that can graze and clear. But the other piece is that the amendment in and of itself is overly broad. With additional work on the amendment, potentially, and that's not my job, we might be able to consider it. But this is the challenge. We have no permitting, no specific requirements. Agriculture in and of itself as a definition is unclear. And so for those reasons, I still ask this body to reject the amendment.
Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the floor leader could answer a question of mine, essentially what we're doing is banning zebras. Are there any other states in these great United States of America that ban zebras?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, for domesticated purposes, just about every state bans zebras, along with the other items that we have in the bill.
So if every state bans zebras, how do they get here and become so prevalent? Like you got them running around your streets in Prince George's County. I don't understand.
And that's because people are breeding wild domestic animals here in the United States, which is actually inappropriate. But that's what's occurring today.
Do you think the amendment relates to zebras for agricultural purposes? Or does it relate to, like, I wouldn't want to keep a zebra as a pet. I don't know what in the world I would do with it. But like some people use these animals in a productive way and they seem to be safely and normally used. I don't think you disagree with that. Why can't we let them exist?
So once again, the legislation as presented and the amendment as presented really is pretty broad.
Okay.
Overly broad.
Thank you.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to say the amendment itself, and this is where the floor leader was going. The amendment for agricultural purposes is not the problem. So we just want to make sure that's clear to everyone. It's not the agricultural purposes that's the problem. The problem is that it's just a little bit too broad. And what we would like to do is to pass it here and give us some time to think about how we can narrow it so that we can do that over on the Senate. So I want to ask the maker of the amendment if he would be so kind to withdraw the amendment with the promise that we will work on the bill with the Senate to get it to a more narrow description, keeping in mind agricultural purposes make sense. And I know that goats are used for grass trimming, and I think it's actually extremely sensitive and ego smart to use animals for grazing of the land. So I just want to give you that commitment that we want to work on it, but we can't accept this amendment just because of the broad nature.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, recognizing the maker of the amendment.
Yes, I'd like to withdraw the amendment with the understanding that the judiciary would work with E&T folks to come up with a regulatory framework so that farmers in Cecil County and other parts of the state can continue to do best practices. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for working it out. Hearing no objection, the amendment is withdrawn. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered for third printing. Thank you. Third reading. Thanks for working it out. Special order calendar, House Bill number 154. The clerk will read the bill. Oh.
House Bill 154, Open Meetings Act, County Boards of Education, Enhanced Requirements, Local Boards of Education Transparency Act. Favor report is amended and adopted.
Thank you. Recognizing the maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. All my questions have been answered.
Thank you. And are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar, House Bill 351. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 351, Public Safety, Federal Agents, Digital Unmasking. Favor report is amended and adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. It's amendment number 293626-1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
I don't know how I follow that last amendment, so this is I don't know. Maybe we should just vote on this thing right now. Good morning. Just wanted to talk a little bit about what this amendment is. So the amendment that we have before us right now, it's a pretty simple amendment. It just removes two words, removes or and allow. So if you look at page 2 on the reprint of the bill, first paragraph under subsection 3-2702, it says, an aggrieved party or the office of the Attorney General may bring an action against a judicial officer who, under color of law, deprives the aggrieved party or causes or allows the aggrieved party to be deprived of a right, a privilege, or an immunity secured under law. So with this amendment, I'm kindly just asking to remove the phrase or allows. So why do I feel that it's important that we remove these two words? My fear is that without this change, the law will be too broad. I'm worried that we're potentially exposing all federal officers present at the scene to be subject to lawsuits when one officer is accused of violating any right. If this amendment is not adopted, I believe that the bill will cast too wide of a net. With this legislation, we're potentially looking at exposing all officers present on the scene at the time of any one officer's violation to be subject to catastrophic lawsuits. This will put our men and women in law enforcement in a very vulnerable position. Thank you.
Recognizing the young lady from Baltimore City and the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam
You're
Speaker.
welcome.
And I'd like to thank the delegate for sharing it with me very early and having a great conversation. So I just appreciate it. It's a thoughtful amendment. But I am asking the body to reject it. So our law and the language that the delegate referenced is modeled on the 1983 law, which is, it's slightly different wording, but it's the same principle, which is caused or allowed to be caused. And the reason it's important is because often the action is directed by or condoned by people up the chain. So for instance, DHS, or excuse me, the acting director of ICE wrote a memo saying that you do not need a Fourth Amendment search warrant signed by a judge to enter a person's house. So if an officer following that memo entered a person's house, they can be sued under the language as we have it. But if we adopt that amendment, the supervisor who told them to do that and the person who wrote the memo and the agency itself would not be subject to lawsuit. So it's actually really important because otherwise it's only the officer who may have been acting, again, under the direction of a supervisor or of, of the agency itself. So I would say it's fairer to include the people up the chain who are the real, often in some cases, the reason that the constitutional deprivation or assault or whatever the infringement is. So I, again, ask the body to reject the amendment. Thank you.
Recognizing the maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I certainly understand that the committee believes that or allows is important in order to target complicit officers who recognize a violation in progress and choose to ignore it, condone it, or even cover it up. But in reality, it's going to expose innocent officers to lawsuits. We're going to see aggressive prosecutors claim that they should have done more to detect and stop violations, even in situations where they might have no idea what was even happening with the offending officer. So, thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk would take the call. There being 94 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title, recognizing the minority leader?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk, 253421/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
What the change to this legislation that was presented by the good delegate who serves as the floor leader yesterday did, essentially, is it incorporates another bill or another legislative concept into the original text of this bill. And that concept has been described by many as sort of a converse 1983 action. That is not a reference to a basketball shoe from the era of, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. That is a reference to the ability of state individuals, Maryland folks, to be able to sue the federal government under the same theory of Federal Law 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. 1983 actions is a colloquialism that attorneys use for civil rights actions. They are situations that, by their nature, do not necessarily have to be criminal. Because if they are criminal, criminal authorities can come out and investigate, local or state prosecutors can decide to file charges, and individuals can be subjected to the criminal process. These aren't criminal. They can be things that are not found to be violations by administrative or regulatory authorities. They can be things that someone investigated and said, we don't find that that's a civil rights violation. You reported something to the Maryland Civil Rights Commission, to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, to all these various agencies that have been created since the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s in our country and in our state to investigate complaints about civil rights violations. Those authorities could look into your situation and say, we don't think that makes it. And you can still file a lawsuit. And that's what happens. As any of you know, I'm an attorney. From a professional standpoint, I should say, let's encourage more lawsuits. The Keep All Lawyers Employed Forever Act I see my good friend from Montgomery County back here smiling. He knows it. He's like, yeah, thumbs up. Like, that's a great thing from a professional standpoint. But as a society, we should be very cautious about turning every dispute and every political disagreement into a lawsuit. What my amendment does is it puts I wouldn't say a barrier, but it creates a framework through which these types of complaints about civil rights violations by federal actors would have to go through before they blossom into a lawsuit against those federal actors. And what the framework would be, what the template would be under the amendment, is that each of these agencies, I know you're all thinking about ICE. I know why we're here every day. ICE, ICE, baby. I get it. It's the session of ICE. But there are a lot of other federal agencies, a lot of other federal law enforcement. There's the Treasury Department. There's the FBI. There's the Secret Service. There's the Drug Enforcement Administration. There are a wide variety of other people that are going to get caught up in this bill because we want to stand up, meaning all of you, want to stand up and show folks we got your back. To heck with ICE, we fight ICE. DEA agents are going to be captured under this too. And your FBI, when they come out and investigate a kidnapped child, and your Department of the Treasury, when they come out and investigate financial frauds, they're all going to be caught up in the bill. It's not just about ICE, even though that's why we're here. And what the template is that in order to file this civil lawsuit, in order to say my rights were violated, you have to allow for the agency or the independent entity that has control over that particular agency's actors to do an internal investigation. There are bad ICE agents. There are bad law enforcement agents. There are bad lawyers. There are bad plumbers. There are bad doctors. And unfortunately, there are bad legislators. There are people we've sat with in this room that have gone to federal prison in the time I have been here. Doesn't make them awful people. They have a right to redemption, but we have to be honest about that. There are people that make mistakes in every walk of life and do things they shouldn't have done in every walk of life. And what the amendment goes to is there are these investigatory processes that already exist. And if someone goes through one of those investigatory processes and says, you didn't do right, and I'll be honest with you, what are the Department of Homeland Security authorities saying now about some of the ICE officers in Minnesota? They're saying, we're not sure they followed protocols correctly. We're investigating them. We've removed them from active duty, and we're investigating them. And if it's determined that they did things wrong, then they have to pay that price as individuals. And they still would under this amendment and under this process. But if the internal investigating agency or the independent agency, many of these places have independent oversight of, it's not controlled by the agency itself. Someone makes a complaint about what an officer did, and they have a process to go through that. If they determine you didn't do anything wrong, then you shouldn't be subject to a 1983 lawsuit. We are going to become the American capital for 1983 lawsuits if we start doing things like this. And every time a federal officer breathes the wrong way, an ambitious attorney is going to say, there's the federal government. I can tell you this, the federal government pays off. Maybe not today, maybe not under the current administration, but I will tell you that if you really do some research, you'll find that the federal government, and who does the federal government use to pay off? Your tax dollars. If you think that that ICE agent has $1 million, $2 million sitting in his account that's attachable when you sue him to pay, you are crazy. The people who pay are the taxpayers. And what they will pay is an excess amount. And if you look into federal litigation, you'll find that every federal agency in D.C., they get sued, and the quickest thing for them to do is throw $100,000 at it, throw $200,000 at it, throw $300,000 at it, over and over and over again. And all the amendment would do, and all we would say within the bill is, let's put a little bit of a brake on it first, and let's make sure that an independent or an internal investigation is concluded that, yep, you screwed up, you violated someone's civil rights, and if you do that, cry havoc, and let's slip the dogs of war. I'm not here to defend people who do that. I'm here to give them a little bit of a chance before they get a lawsuit thrown against them that may ruin their lives. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the leader, the floor leader.
Thank you. And Madam Speaker, I'm trying very hard to speak into my microphone.
It's okay. It's hard when you're trying to do that.
So thank you again, and I want to thank the maker of the amendment for sharing it yesterday and for, again, speaking with me. I appreciate that very much. So this amendment, I urge the body to reject even more strongly than the First Amendment. It would effectively neuter the bill, because if you allow the agency that may itself be subject to the suit to have to first investigate itself and determine that it did something wrong, you can imagine the incentive it would have not to do that, either to not investigate, to delay the investigation, or to find. In fact, guess what? All their employees acted perfectly. So the maker of the amendment brought up ICE and brought up the example of what happened in Minnesota. So I would like to talk about that. After the killing of Renee Good, DOJ made statements in the press that nothing was wrong and that they would not investigate the matter. 6 U.S. attorneys, 6 lawyers who would be responsible for the investigation resigned. A few weeks later, Alex Preddy was killed, again, by ICE officers, based on video, no justification as far as anyone could see. Again, statements made about him, about defending the officers, and no investigation. Another tranche, I think 8 federal prosecutors resigned at that point. After pressure, after enormous public pressure, and legal expertise across the entire spectrum saying this is wrong, this is a violation of the law, yes, now there's maybe an investigation. But can you imagine if we said you can only bring a civil rights suit if DOJ, if ICE all first agree that there was a violation? That is contrary to 1983 claims. So your local jurisdictions, your police departments, the state police, we don't allow them to investigate before suits are brought. We don't do that in any context because for obvious reasons. So I really do encourage the body to reject the amendment. It would undo the point of the bill and I think be contrary to the way that we approach civil rights enforcement in this country. Thank you.
Recognizing the
Thank you,
minority
Madam Speaker.
leader.
Just in finality, I appreciate the viewpoints of my colleague, but I will tell you this. One of the demonstrated effects of creating an impression in law enforcement officials' mind is that when they go out to do their job and they go out to potentially apprehend someone, that everything they do may subject them to civil liability, personal liability, is to defray them from getting out of their cars. I know quite a few police officers in my life who will tell you that over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, as it has become more and more prevalent to sue, it has become more and more prevalent to file charges, it has become more and more prevalent to take that position. And I'll be honest, some people deserve it. I'm not here to suggest that there are not any instances where someone who wears a badge or who acts under the color of federal authority does something wrong, because there are. There are bad folks in every walk of life who make mistakes, every. But what happens is the vast majority of people who aren't and who have no intention to do so, they're like, man, this could go south quick. I could get out, I could attempt to apprehend someone who perhaps is a person of color, they're perhaps wanted, I think they're wanted, I'm not sure, I'm reacting in seconds. I do something wrong, I say something wrong, they claim I do or say something wrong, that my own internal investigating authority says you didn't do anything wrong. And it could be the end. It can be the end. So what would I rather do? I'll just sit in the car. I'll just let them run by. I'm not going to pursue them. I'm not going to go after them. I'm not going to do anything. Because no matter what I do, I lose. I want independent, factual investigations of these things, not colored by political biases on either side, and I want it to be not colored by the smell of money. And sometimes that's what 1983 suits can become. 1983 suits very often do not remedy the civil rights problem. They do not go in and say we want systemic change in the organization. They do not go in and say we want policies and procedures changed. They go in and say, make it rain. We want money. And so all I am offering in the amendment is in the rare situation where something occurs that is investigated by the agency, that is investigated by the independent authority within the agency or within the federal government and says, you didn't do anything wrong here, you can't turn that around and use this for this unique, remarkable. The reason why we have the bill is because we've never done it before. Today, you can't do this. Yesterday, you couldn't do it. 10 years ago, you couldn't do it. 50 years ago, you couldn't do it. So it's not like I'm trying to go roll us backwards and say, oh, well, gee, we can't do this anymore. We can't sue. We couldn't do it yesterday. We've never done it before. Very few places do it. We're trying to do something fairly new. We're trying to do something very aggressive because of ICE. And I think that this is a little bit of a break in reality from that approach. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, explain my vote.
Yes, recognizing.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess that I'm voting right on this amendment because we currently have the leader of this administration suing the IRS for $10 billion for the leak of his tax returns. He does not have to do an independent factual investigation. There is no requirement that he do that. And in fact, the people settling this case are going to be the ones that he appointed. So there's a great chance of success there. And if he has that access, I believe the rest of our citizens should too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 94 votes in the negative, the amendment fails.
Madam Speaker.
1 second.
Sir.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title, recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Would the floor leader rise for a question or two?
Yes, recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just a few questions. So how does this bill interact with the U.S. Coast Guard?
If a U.S. Coast Guard officer was authorized and fell under the definition of judicial officers authorized to make arrests under the U.S. Code and carried a gun in the performance of their duty, they would be covered.
So they are law enforcement officers when they're not federalized during a time of war. They do report to DHS. So I think they would fall under this. They carry a weapon, things like that. So how would this work with a Coast Guard vessel boarding a foreign flagged ship in federal waters, which we have lots of those, coming up the Chesapeake Bay? How does this work there in that circumstance?
I'll be honest, I do not know. I'm not an expert on maritime law, but I'm happy to get you that answer.
Yeah. So I think that there's some supremacy clause issues there. That is very much the sole purview of the federal government there. However, this bill, because when the Coast Guard is not federalized during a wartime situation, they are a part of DHS. So I think that there are some supremacy clause issues with respect to that here. Do you have any thoughts about that?
So there will be, I mean, we know from litigation around the country, there will be arguments, including supremacy clause, depending on the factual scenario, and those will have to be litigated. But no, you're right to bring up the issue more generally. But the fundamental principle is protected under case law, exists under case law, that we as a state can authorize lawsuits to protect the U.S. Constitution and prevent violations thereof. But I'm not an expert on what exactly that would entail, but I'm happy to work with, or talk to you offline about that.
Sure. Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate your willingness to talk offline, because I don't think we're trying to create laws that on their face could get, at least a portion of them could get struck down in court. But I think with respect to the Coast Guard, when you're talking about foreign flagged vessels, when you're talking about all those kinds of things, those are very much a federal. You're not even talking about someone that maybe has ever even stepped foot off the ship onto U.S. soil here. So I think that there's a very potential real issue with that with the Coast Guard, and I think we might want to tighten that up. I don't have an amendment, but it's just something that struck me as we were sitting here having this discussion. I would love to talk more offline with you about that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
I have
welcome.
an amendment at the desk. It is 333722.
Amendment number 1.
Moves to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
The
welcome.
amendment requires the acquisition of a warrant in these cases. I do have a question for the floor leader, if she could yield, please.
Floor leader, please rise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could you just explain Section 2 for us, please?
You're referring to the gathering of evidence when you say Section 2?
No, at the end of the bill, Section 2. the uncodified language.
Hold on one second. It's a severability clause.
Can you explain that for the body, please?
Sure, and we frequently include that in our laws, which means that if one portion is found to be problematic, unconstitutional, or otherwise, that would not prevent the rest of the law from remaining in effect.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Great question.
Thanks. And I think that's important, and we do that, and we've had that that was the only question, Madam Floor Leader, that I had. Thank you. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
You can sit. Thank you.
And I think that's important because we put those kind of clauses into legislation just in case they are found unconstitutional or otherwise illegal. And I think it speaks to the broad problems with the bill. I don't know the precedent in American government we have to give the executive branch such sweeping surveillance authority. And it very much feels like a weaponization against law enforcement. So, you know, for me, the Fourth Amendment is really important. I think in these cases, which clearly can become highly political, I think it's very reasonable for a court to look at these cases, look at the facts and say, you know, this is a legitimate case, and we are going to give you the authority to use license plate readers, cell tower data, cell phone data, location data, image search results, GPS data, Stingray data, as well as facial recognition technology, a massive surveillance authority to use against law enforcement. So I think this is quite reasonable. I think this is well in the spirit of American government. It's a good government, Fourth Amendment protection. I'd ask the body to support it, and I'd move the amendment.
Floor Leader.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the problem with the amendment, as I understand it, and I may not fully understand it because I don't, how it exactly would apply is unclear. But the way that we've structured the digital unmasking portion of this is we are not changing current law. We are not giving law enforcement any additional powers. We are just saying within existing law, they can use that to obtain the identity of the people and then provide it for purposes of suit. So your bill, I think, would upset the apple cart. It would do one of two things. It would either require a warrant where a warrant is not required. So for instance, license plate reader data may be just held and owned in the possession of the law enforcement agency and available in part at least through an MPIA, much less a subpoena or search warrant. So it would change the standard currently existing to obtain relatively unprotected information. I mean unprotected from a Fourth Amendment perspective. Or it would allow law enforcement to obtain things with a warrant for a civil case that it couldn't obtain without this law. So I think your amendment would harm us in either direction, and so I urge the body to reject it and maintain the law as we've presented it, the bill, excuse me, because what it does is allows law enforcement to use existing law and no more and no less to obtain the information. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think the
amendment.
germane terminology in the bill is local law enforcement agency to gather and securely retain as much identifying digital data as possible. And the word gather seems pretty clear to me that facilitates the future or ongoing collection of this data. And if it's unclear as to whether a warrant would be required because we just assume that, I think it's pretty reasonable to actually put that in a statute. We've had in this state massive examples of surveillance technologies that have been deployed and the public didn't know, and now we have to have a giant litigation based on the Fourth Amendment infractions of the implementation. So I think it's quite reasonable to say we shouldn't assume that warrants are going to be needed in this case. We should specify it, and I'd press the amendment.
So the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 94 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is printed for third reading. Special Order Calendar, House Bill 1017. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1017, Correctional Services, Private Immigration Detention Facilities, Zoning Requirement. Favor report is amended, adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the motion, the gentleman from Cecil in Hartford County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have
You're
an amendment
welcome.
at the desk. Amendment 753729-1.
Amendment number 1.
So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
So, and first and foremost, I made sure I got this amendment to the committee beforehand, so I appreciate working with me on this.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So this amendment's very simple. All it states is if any provision of this bill is held invalid in the courts, and as we know, it will be because of the supremacy clause, that the entire bill is made invalid. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy amendment, and with that, I would move the amendment.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
And thank you for providing this early to the committee. First of all, I want to just say to my colleagues, please reject this. This is very rarely used in situations like this. It's used mostly in legislation which is long and complex. This legislation is not that. This legislation only changes a subsection. And what it specifically does is it requires that state and local government expressly, and let me just make that clear, expressly is authorized and permitted to use buildings, structures, and others for private detention. That's all this bill does. A very simple bill, not something where we would use non-severability. This is definitely something that we need to look at and understand that this should be rejected. So I ask you again to reject this amendment.
Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
And
welcome.
the floor leader's still up? There you are. Question for you, if you don't mind. Does this bill have a severability clause in it like the last bill?
No, it does not.
Now, we just heard the importance, the legal importance of a severability clause, right? When we're dealing with state interacting with the federal government, because anyone who's ever attended a constitutional law class knows that generally states can't impede certain federal actions. And so here we have another bill dealing with how the state of Maryland interacts with the federal government. And so what I heard from the amendment, and thank you for answering that question, by the way. What I heard from the amendment maker is that he's merely just saying that if there's something in the bill that is found unconstitutional by a competent court, that the bill no longer takes effect. Just like the previous bill, right? You would seem that this is a very reasonable measure, the fact that the previous floor leader used it in her defense of the previous bill. So I think it's a very reasonable amendment. It doesn't actually go to the substance of the bill. There was no implication on the substance of the bill. It basically just says that if this body passes an unconstitutional piece of legislation and a court outside of this chamber agrees with that, that the bill is no longer in effect. That's called good legislating, to be honest with you. Because I think, if I recall, that everybody here swore an oath to the Constitution. And I think the gentleman's amendment just speaks to that. That says, look, if the bill is found or parts of the bill are unconstitutional, that doesn't take effect. So I hope that this body, in reference to the zebras, shows their two stripes and supports this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
First and foremost, this is about preserving local zoning. This does not in any way encumber federal law. This is not about giving the federal government anything specifically. This is preserving, again, the basic tenets of what local zoning looks like. And that's for there to be transparency. That's for people within the communities to understand and know what they are doing and letting people know how to actually zone in their areas. There are special reasons people zone. And that is because they know their communities. They know what to expect. They know what they want. And this bill does not in any way deal with the supremacy clause. This is not a direct violation or anything directly related to what the federal government is doing. This is about private detention centers. That's what this is about. This is about giving the community the right to know what is going on in their community and understand how to react to that. And they can, through express, let me say express and explicit direction, approve whatever they need to do in their communities. And that's all this is. This is about local zoning land use.
Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Look, now, I'm certainly not impugning anyone's motives, but it's like, what are you afraid of, right? If the bill's legit, there's nothing to be afraid of, right? There's no concern. The amendment doesn't talk about any of the substance matter of the bill. Didn't mention it whatsoever. It just says that if the bill is found unconstitutional because it deals with a federal issue, right? I know people in this chamber are obsessed with the federal government. Oh, I'm obsessed. Every day, speaking of bingo cards, every day it's about Trump and ICE and this and that. This amendment doesn't cover any of those things. It just says that if this body passes a bill that is found unconstitutional by someone else, not the minority caucus, but someone else, that the bill no longer takes effect. Just like my friend over here who used the severability clause in another immigration-related bill. So, look, I think it's very reasonable. To be honest with you, every bill that we pass should have that in it, to where if somebody finds it unconstitutional, then it no longer takes effect. So I appreciate the amendment. I push the amendment because this subject matter deals with federal immigration enforcement. And it's very dangerous, right, when states, it clearly seems that certain folks want to impede the federal government, and I don't necessarily disagree on all the issues, right, but the amendment doesn't cover that. The amendment just says if the bill is unconstitutional, that it no longer takes effect, and I push the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the full leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
First and foremost, all of Maryland laws presume severability. And so to now indicate specifically for this legislation something that we do not do on the normal, this is very rare, as I mentioned earlier, usually with very complex and long bills that we deal with this. But nonetheless, you know, this, again, we need to focus back on what this bill is really doing. It is not in any way impeding the federal government because we're not talking about direct contracts or anything related to the federal government. We're talking about specifically local zoning. That is it. And making sure that people are transparent and understand what their zoning is. So again, I would request that we decline this amendment, reject it. It is not necessary. It is not needed. This is all about bringing it back to the local zoning and letting people who live in the communities decide what they want to do.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk would take the call. There being 96 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 14, House Bill 1018. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1018, Correctional Services, Immigration Detention Facilities, Minimum Mandatory Standards. Favorite report as amended and adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the amendment, the delegate from Cecil and Hartford County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. All my questions have been answered.
Thank you. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Cecil County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the prior offer of the amendment, loved an amendment. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 523427-1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
So as I stated, really appreciated the gentleman for offering the prior amendment. This amendment does the same thing. It only applies to 1018. Basically, what happens is if this bill or a provision of this bill was deemed to be unconstitutional, it invalidates the entirety of the bill. I would make the argument that this is in a similar line to the fruit of the poisonous tree, whereas we have a provision of a bill where something unconstitutional has occurred, and because of the narrow cast of the bill, that the entirety of the bill should be invalidated. We've heard a number of constitutional arguments today from different spokespeople, and I have grave concerns about how this bill would even be implemented and if it would hold up in court. So with that, I'd like to again offer the same language on this bill, and with that, I'll press the amendment.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
First, just want to thank the maker of the amendment for getting us the amendment ahead of time. To the committee, I also want to thank him for his long-held beliefs around zebra protection, which I have the utmost respect for. Unfortunately, colleagues, I'm going to ask you to resist this amendment just like the other one. But a pop quiz. What do Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Antonin Scalia, Thomas Jefferson, and Rob Schneider have in common? Anyone? They've all expressed skepticism about the power of unelected judges substituting their own judgment for the judgment of legislators. And this amendment, which was heralded in the last bill, is actually extremely dangerous because the presumption in Maryland law is that every bill is severable. That's why the prior bill that we heard, I think that the minority whip may have gotten a little tripped up. The prior bill about digital unmasking had a severability clause, which says that if you find one aspect of the bill unconstitutional, you don't throw everything out. This amendment, like the last bill, is the opposite. It's a non-severability clause, which is to say, yes, we do want judges to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, here's the problem with that. Non-severability can make sense when you have a tightly interwoven scheme in a bill. But with a bill like HB 1018, which has multiple independent public safety measures, it is not the right way to do lawmaking. And it's not the right way to do lawmaking because we empower unelected judges to substitute their own wisdom and to override legislative intent instead of preserving the power for us, the actual elected representatives. So even if you plan to vote red on this bill on third reader tomorrow, I would ask you to pause for a couple of seconds before you vote green on this amendment, because I think it sets us down a very dangerous path about giving too much power to our unelected judges. I'll be voting red.
Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Floor leader, do you have any information to believe that provisions of this law are likely to be found unconstitutional?
I don't, Mr. Minority Leader. I don't. I actually think that this bill is extremely constitutional. The reason I think that is because I wrote it, and the second reason I think
a good gentleman from Alabama is rarely wrong. But.
The second reason I wrote it is fortunately for all of us, but especially fortunately for me, the Ninth Circuit issued opinion last year. I don't know if you read it. It's called GEO Group versus Inslee, and it was written in contrast to a similarly named opinion called GEO Group versus Newsom. So again, the Washington governor versus the California governor. What California did was held to violate the Supremacy Clause because they frustrated federal immigration efforts by basically saying you couldn't have any private immigration detention facilities. What Washington did was a different tack. They used traditional state police powers preserved by the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution to do what states have always done: apply neutral minimum health and safety standards to all jails in the state. And it went up on appeal to the Ninth Circuit, and in that opinion, GEO Group versus Inslee, everyone can Google it, they said that states do have the power to apply neutral minimum health and safety standards as long as they're broadly applicable and don't single out ICE in particular. So what did I do? I took the Washington bill and I basically copy and pasted it into this bill. So that's why I'm so confident that it will withstand constitutional scrutiny.
So when you said you wrote it, some bill drafter in Olympia, Washington wrote it, and you stole their work. But that's good. That's good. You know, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Exactly. Some light plagiarism. Yes.
So what I would say to you, and I read and skimmed both of those decisions, but I would also suggest to you that there's an undercurrent in both of them, and I will tell you, we did request an Attorney General opinion. I have it. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And the Attorney General opinion, not to, I want to keep you guys hanging on the edge of your seats for another day of ICE discussion. What I would suggest is there's a lot of language in there that suggests that they will have a very difficult time defending portions of your bill. Because portions of it suggest that the state can come in and tell federal authorities, and this is all about, at least to my knowledge, this is about the federal government already spent $100 million of your taxpayers' money, and they already bought a facility lawfully and legally in Washington County, Maryland, not in my district, but close enough. I probably know it as well as anybody except for a few people in the back row. They've purchased the facility. They've already spent a lot of your taxpayers' money upgrading the facility, internal construction on the facility, and readying the facility to be used not as a private detention facility, but as a federal government installation. And what I would suggest is elements of your bill suggest that the state can now come in and say, well, this is wrong and that is wrong, and we have certain requirements for correctional facilities that you're not following. Would you agree, just in general, that your bill imposes correctional facility requirements in a federal facility based upon the state regulatory regime?
This bill applies very basic health and safety standards for all jails in the state.
Okay. Does it apply to the Federal Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland?
It applies to every jail in the state.
Okay. So do you believe that the state of Maryland can enter the Federal Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland, which to the best of my knowledge is the only federal correctional institution in the state? I hesitate to say one of our former colleagues was once incarcerated there. I went to visit him one day. It's about 15 minutes from my house. Do you think that we can go there, that the state can go there and show some papers and get through the barbed wire and the gates and go in and tell the warden of the Federal Correction Institution in Cumberland, Maryland, hey, you don't have enough sanitary supplies over here, you subject the detainees to more isolation than we believe is correct, we don't like your food menus, it's not up to snuff, we don't think that you're providing for the health and safety? Because I'm going to give you the answer. I've been on the facility before. The state of Maryland has no ability to get into the facility unless they have the cooperation of the federal government, just like I don't have an ability to get into the Naval Academy because Maryland doesn't own the ground. It's federalized. I can't just show up at the Naval Academy and say I'm the state of Maryland. I think you haven't been doing things right for the midshipmen over here, and the state of Maryland's going to enforce our college standards on your college because it ain't ours. It's theirs. And so do you believe that your bill, forget ICE, will enable the state of Maryland to impose additional regulations and conditions upon the Federal Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland, beyond what they believe is appropriate under their own rules?
I know for a fact that we can regulate private actors in federal facilities, and I know that because multiple court cases have held that, and that's part of what the bill does. I know that for sure. Okay. Otherwise, I'm not exactly sure what the Fourth Circuit will hold on some of these issues. I think that it's constitutional based on the opinion in the Ninth Circuit. Obviously, circuits can disagree. They can split, as you know. Here's what I do know, though. I was elected by the residents of District 19 to make sure that people in jails are safe and that jails don't fail. Because when jails fail, either because of emergency preparedness or lack of HVAC certification or lack of heat, lack of air conditioning, lack of cybersecurity protocols, those negative externalities do not stop at the fence line of the jail. And they unfortunately pass down to us, the taxpayers and the ratepayers. So fundamentally, this is a bill, the reason this is important, and we'll see what the courts do. I'm not willing to wave the white flag because I'm a legislator. We're co-equal branches. We'll see what happens. But for now, this is a fiscal responsibility bill consistent with when the majority parties focus on affordability. Because if we don't make sure that jails have plans up front so that they don't fail, all the taxpayers are going to be left holding the bag.
Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And
You're welcome.
I'm glad you're the one defending this one because I got to tell you, do you know where we got the language for this amendment?
You going to tell me it's the Dignity Not Detention Act?
It's the HB 152, the Elder Abuse Act. Whose bill is that?
Oh, nice. That's my bill.
So
I'm
I want
flattered.
you folks to hear this. The language for this amendment is from his bill. So you heard him talk about us legislators giving power away. I took verbatim the language of this amendment from his Elder Abuse Bill 152.
And I'm happy to explain why it made sense.
Okay,
in that
you don't
case.
need to. I got my questions answered. I appreciate that. So just so we heard, the language of this amendment is from his bill. And I don't know if that bill was written from another person in another state, like your other bill, apparently. But just so we heard, the language in this bill was taken strictly from HB 152, the Elder Abuse Act. It's online. ECM's going to hear it later. So I guess we're going to have to readdress that section of the bill too, because to your point, maybe we shouldn't have that language. So I'll just say this. Everything you just said is unrelated to this amendment. Our amendment is only covering the constitutionality. It has nothing to do with conditions and HVAC and meals and nutrition and this and that. We didn't go there. Didn't talk about it. Irrelevant to this amendment. This amendment from you, your bill 152, merely states that if portions of the bill are unconstitutional, it goes away. And I want to thank you for inspiring me to have this amendment drafted. So I encourage colleagues, in consideration of this bill and also his bill later, HB 152, to support this amendment, and I move the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you very much. Well, as we did say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, so I very much appreciate the shout out. However, as I also said, sometimes non-severability clauses can make sense. When you have interwoven statutory frameworks where you pull one thread and the whole rest of the thread falls away, like my bill, HB 152, we don't need to get into the details of another bill, but you can trust me that when you have a statutory structure that is interwoven and you need all the component parts to exist, non-severability clauses make sense. But the reason severability is the presumption in Maryland law, and the reason sometimes we take a belt and suspender approach and add a severability clause to bills, is when there are independent pieces where it does not make sense to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So if the minority leader and perhaps the minority whip are correct, that there are some, and maybe even the Attorney General, we'll hear tomorrow, I'm on the edge of my seat, but maybe we'll hear tomorrow that some pieces of this bill are very constitutionally strong and others could not withstand some constitutional scrutiny depending on the panel that we get on the Fourth Circuit. This is not the kind of bill where non-severability makes sense, because what we're essentially inviting courts to do is to exercise their own independent judgment over the legislative intent. There are about 10 different pieces to this bill. They're all separate, they're all good, and there's absolutely no reason to allow an unelected judge on some federal appellate panel to throw out the entirety just because one is suspect. I would urge you to vote red.
Recognizing the gentleman from Cecil County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In closing, I just want to remind everyone in this body that we took an oath to uphold the Constitution. We are not Congress. We're making laws here at the state level. And I've really enjoyed the debate on this. And ultimately, sometimes when there's discord on a bill, we have to seek out another co-equal branch of government. It sounds like that will be borne out tomorrow. And that's why I'm asking you for a green vote. And with that, I push the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 96 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 9. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 17, Estates and Trusts, venue for administrative and judicial probate and application of inheritance tax. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Moves so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
The committee amendments, amendment number 1 makes technical corrections. Amendment number 2 clarifies the criteria for determining the venue for administrative or judicial probate of a decedent who is not domiciled in the state. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. That ends the work at the desk. Before I end, I want to let the delegate from Cecil County know that I got up on this floor many years ago to defend baby bears, cubs from traps. And let me tell you, I heard about that for years to come. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Committee announcement, appropriations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The full committee will not meet, but listen for subcommittee announcements.
Economic matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Economic Matters will meet at 1 p.m. for bill hearings.
Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Environment and Transportation Committee will meet at 1 p.m. for bill hearings.
Government, Labor, and Elections.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. GLE will meet at 1 p.m. for bill hearings.
Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health Committee will meet at 1 p.m. for bill hearings.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Judiciary Committee will meet at 1 p.m. Subcommittee chairs meeting at noon in room 350. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
The
welcome.
Ways and Means Committee will meet at 1 p.m. for bill hearings. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any subcommittee announcements? Recognizing first the delegate from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Education and Economic Development Subcommittee of Appropriations will be meeting at 1 p.m. in the Appropriations Hearing Room for a budget hearing for the Maryland State Department of Education.
The next Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Housing and Real Property Subcommittee will meet virtually immediately after Business Regulation Subcommittee meeting. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
The
welcome.
Election Law Subcommittee of the Government, Labor, and Elections will meet 15 minutes after floor session is over.
Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Revenues is meeting today virtually at 12:15.
Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Health and Social Services Subcommittee on Appropriations will be meeting today at 1 p.m. to hear our Medicaid budget hearing in the joint hearing room. Thank you.
Thank you. Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Agriculture and Aquaculture Subcommittee of ENT will meet 15 minutes after bill hearings virtually. Thank you.
Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Business Regulations Subcommittee meeting will meet immediately following the ECM bill hearings.
Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Public Safety and Administration Subcommittee of Appropriations will be meeting at 1 p.m. today for budget hearings in room 150.
Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Racing and Sports Facilities Subcommittee of Appropriations will meet tomorrow morning in person, room 120 at 9 a.m.
Thank you. Baltimore County? No? No? Okay. Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Environment Subcommittee will meet 15 minutes after the end of the Agriculture Subcommittee meeting has completed its meeting.
Thank you. Any other subcommittee announcements? Seeing none, delegation announcements. Recognizing the delegate from Hartford County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Hartford County delegation will meet immediately following session outside the Silver Room for a time-sensitive vote. Thank you.
Any other delegation? Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Bi-County Committee for the Prince George's County delegation will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. via Zoom.
Any other delegation announcements? Seeing none, let's go to caucus. Any caucus announcements? Seeing none, let's go to the special Black History moment, which will be given and presented by the delegate from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Colleagues, Black History Month is about honoring the richness and the depth of the Black diaspora. Afro-Latinos are part of that story, and no discussion around Black History Month would be complete without exploring the significant contributions of Afro-Latinos to social, political, and the cultural fabric of our country. According to the Pew Research Center, out of the 50 million Black people in this country, 6% identified as Afro-Latino. As members of the African diaspora, we have often faced alienation and discrimination for being too black to be Latino and too Latino to be black. Latinidad, a Spanish term meant to represent all members of Latin descent, has often erased our cultural contributions both to American culture as well as our society. But despite these efforts, Afro-Latinos have always been here, and we will continue to be here. Afro-Latinos, such as Esteban Hotes, a member of the famed Tuskegee Airmen, who helped integrate the US military, and also died serving this country during World War II. Arturo Alfonso Schomburg, a key intellectual figure in the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s, who spent his life championing black history and who created one of the largest depositories of black or African history that this country has ever seen in 1926. The Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture now exists because of his contributions. Many Afro-Latinos have made significant yet often overlooked inroads into professional baseball decades before Jackie Robinson broke the color line in 1947. Trailblazers such as Armando Marsans and later Roberto Clemente, whose name graces a middle school in my own district. In this very august chamber, we made history by elevating one of the most prepared and compassionate Afro-Latinos that I know to lead the House of Delegates.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Black History Month is a reminder that black history is rich, it is layered, and it is year-round, and our policies and practices should reflect our commitment to equity and inclusion year-round. In the words of a fellow Marylander, a celebrated poet and author who has won many literary awards, Elizabeth Acevedo, no relation, we are not just here, but we will continue to be. And the stories that I share, I am letting Afro-Latinos know that we are wonderful protagonists in this world that we live in. It is not something for us to forget. I am who I am because of not just my history, but the contributions of people of African descent to Latinidad. As many of you know, my dad, my grandfather are Afro-Venezuelan, and the millions of Afro-Venezuelans who have contributed not just to the history of Venezuela, but to the history of the United States of America. We are here, we are unapologetic, but more importantly, we take up spaces because we know that our crowns have already been bought and paid for, and all we have to do is wear it. Black History Month is about recognizing that deep and enduring history, and that history encompasses the contributions of Afro-Latinos. This is your Black History Month moment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Personal or guest announcements?
Madam Speaker.
Yes. Recognizing the gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Colleagues, today, in celebration of National FFA Week and the 98th anniversary of the Maryland FFA Association, 230 FFA members and their advisors from across the state are visiting with us in Annapolis. The FFA is the largest school-based national youth organization for students enrolled in agricultural education programs. In Maryland, over 2,700 members from 50 local chapters in middle and high schools and in all 23 school systems participate in activities that follow the FFA mission to make a positive difference in the lives of students by developing their potential for premier leadership, personal growth, career success through agricultural education. Colleagues, let's give this fine group a warm round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore City, then Montgomery County, right behind you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I wanted to give congratulations to the oh-so-pretty ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, but also to the prettiest of them all, my wife, Sydney Wilson Ruff, who should be with us in the front gallery.
Welcome.
I love you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the gentleman from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is not Zebra Day, colleagues, but it is Aerospace Day. But I would like to recognize the many innovative aerospace companies that are here today as part of Aerospace Day. And from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., there will be interactive aerospace displays taking place in the House Office Building in room 140. Members and staff can participate in hands-on exhibits from leading federal laboratories, research institutions, and companies, including the Naval Research Laboratory, the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab, Rocket Lab, which is literally building rockets in Maryland, and other Maryland-based innovators. In addition, there's also going to be a reception this evening starting at 5:30 at the Historic Inns of Annapolis. So if you wanted to be an astronaut or build rockets, today's the day to learn how. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've got two AKAs up in the gallery as well, two of our most important constituents. One is Sabrina Wiggins, who is the librarian at DJS in Baltimore City, and the other is the mayor of Northeast Baltimore and the president of Bel Air Edison Association, Ms. Rita Cruz. Thank you.
Welcome. Recognizing the gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's a
You're
very
welcome.
special guest in the audience today. She is a 26-year veteran of the United States Army, including 4 combat tours. She is an AKA member. Alpha Kappa Alpha. She is the president of the Anne Arundel County School Board, and her name is Gloria Dent. Please give it up for her.
I think he deserves an honorary membership after that. Recognizing the lady from Montgomery County.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, today I stand before you wearing pink, not only in celebration of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated's Day in Annapolis, but also as a symbol of hope, of support, and also visibility in the fight against breast cancer. The Ways and Means Committee today organized ourselves to wear pink in support of, Madam Speaker, permission to use the delegate's name?
Permission granted.
In support of my Vice Chair, Delegate Jessica Feldmark, to show our love, our appreciation for the hard work that she still does every single day on behalf of the state of Maryland, despite her treatment. And I wanted to rise before the body to ask everyone to just join me and the committee in just thanking her for all of her work. And our prayers are with her in her treatment, and our love and our support. Thank you.
Thank you. Much love. Recognizing the lady from, you have been so patient, Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, as your ever dutiful Vice Protocol Chair, I'm here with the most important announcement of the day. Second most, because I think that one was the most important one. Thank you. The mostest. Tonight at 5:30 p.m., you and your amazing staff are officially invited to a lively, colorful reception in Miller West, our sister states of Maryland organization, in partnership with the Office of the Secretary of State, will be serving up international food, entertainment, and plenty of hospitality. So consider this your permission slip to step away from your emails and enjoy yourselves for a bit. Bring your staff, bring your appetites, and join us for a fun, festive celebration of Maryland's global friendships. Thank you.
Thank you.
5:30.
What time?
5:30 p.m.
Thank you. Recognizing the delegate from Prince George's County.
Thank you. That sounds so nice compared to what I'm about to say. But well, for me, I just want to recognize, even though we did have a Black History moment and an Afro-Latino recognition, I just want to highlight the fact that we lost a great member in our Afro-Latino community this week, which is Willie Colon. He is a salsero who was one of the founders of the genre of music of salsa, which has its roots in jazz originally in this country. And this is a sound that's very unique to this country and the nexus that it has with the Caribbean. So I just, as somebody, he just passed away February 21st, and a lot of his music was extremely political and grounded in social justice. So I just want to have a minute to just recognize the loss of such a great member to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other person or guest announcement? Recognizing my district mate from Prince George's County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to use the delegates' names.
Permission granted.
Thank you. On behalf of Delegate Ben Barnes and on behalf of Speaker Pena Melnick, I ask you to help me to welcome students from College Park Academy. It is a charter school in our district, and it's high school ranked in the top 5% in the state of Maryland and was number Prince George's County. Last year, it's middle school ranked in the top 8% in Maryland and number 1 in Prince George's County. And last year, graduates earned more than $15 million in scholarships. Please give them a warm welcome. Thank you.
Yes, welcome. Any other person recognizing the delegate from Prince George's?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Permission to use the delegates' names?
Permission granted.
Thank you. Thank you to the members of the District 28, Delegate C.T. Wilson, Delegate Deborah Davis.
District 28?
28?
Okay.
Yeah, did I say it right?
Okay.
Oh, all right, thank you. Do-over. Delegate C.T. Wilson, Delegate Deborah Davis, and Delegate Edith Patterson for allowing me to introduce one of their constituents who is joining us in the balcony, Attorney Michelle Harris, who is here with us today. She is a best interest attorney fighting on behalf of children in our courts every day. She was appointed to the Judicial Nominating Committee of Charles County, and she is also the former president of the Charles County Bar Association. It has been a pleasure to get to know her and work with her on cases as she fights to enforce the rights of children every day in our state. So please join us in welcoming her. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other personal or guest announcement? Seeing none, quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Everyone is here from the back. Has everyone recorded their presence? The clerk would take the call. There being 127 members present, the House is still in session. Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stands adjourned until Thursday, February 26 at 10 o'clock a.m., legislative date February 20.